Hey, what's up? Thanks for coming back, everyone. So, this is a super sweet, super expensive in its day 4870X2 graphics card. Now, what I thought I would do with that today is nothing at all. I'm going to drive over the top of it to show you my sweet new crawler project. This thing is awesome, and I'm going to show you guys where it came from and where it's at now. Here we go. Get out of here. Okay, so RC crawlers, right? A couple months ago, my buddies and I were watching a bunch of these RC crawler videos on YouTube, and they're pretty sick. They're also pretty expensive, $400 or $500 to start, up to $1,000, which I cannot afford to spend on them. But it gave me this itch, and I really wanted to play with an RC crawler and modify it and make it look how I wanted to. But I couldn't figure out how to do it economically until I realized they have micro crawlers. Now these are also very capable, they're just smaller. In the RC crawler world, scale is the cool thing, which just means that it's as close to the real life truck as possible. It looks as much and works as much like the real life truck as possible. So I wanted to replicate that in these smaller trucks, and I decided to get the smaller truck for three reasons. Number one, I've already touched on this, the price. It's much cheaper. You can get almost any 1/24 scale crawler out there for under $100. Second thing is a thing that I'm going to remember in just a second. Oh yeah, I could play with it in the house, like anywhere. I could play with it on this desktop. I have enough room to play around and have fun, crawl over this rock or whatever. And the third reason is that I can put model bodies on them. 1/24 is model scale. And there is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of models out there, so you could essentially make these into any truck that you wanted to. Okay, so the whole reason I wanted to do a crawler is to make it look like a real truck. I think that's the coolest thing about these crawler rigs. When I got this thing, it was like this with this terrible body on it. And it doesn't look like a truck. It doesn't look like anything that would exist in real life, so it's not that fun for me. So what I did was I went to Walmart looking for models, which Walmart doesn't have models, so it was a futile attempt anyway. But I found this, which was on here. It might work if I do something like that. Anyway, this 6970 Blazer body came on this Walmart RC car for $10. $10 is cheaper than a model would cost you. So I bought the thing, I took the crappy body that came on the WL Toys 24438 crawler, and I glued it to this, and I took this thing and said to my daughter, "Here you go, I got you an RC car." And then I kept the body, and I had to do a bunch of cutting. I cut the bumpers off, I cut the wheel wells out. This cool little stinger here I made at work out of some TIG welding wire, and I think it turned out really well. And then I just glued some Legos, hot glued Legos, to the inside of this thing because these happen to be the same diameter as the pegs that mount the original body. And then all of a sudden I have a halfway decent looking little Blazer crawler. The next thing I had to do is, out of the box, these trucks do not flex at all. They do this weird side-to-side axle thing. I don't have one in stock form to show you. Anyway, so we've got this with its extreme lack of flex and awkward crab walkie to crawl thing that is not scale at all. It's not how. So of these two trucks, this is a WL Toys 24438. And it was a fun little truck when I got it. I put the battery in it, I fixed the links, and then it was fun to play with for a while. The only problem is the electronics that come in this thing are terrible. So whenever you try to like put some amps to the motor, you know, like crawl up something, it cuts out. You have to turn it off, turn it back on. and you have to charge the bat. It has to be like fully charged all the time to not do that, which is pretty annoying. And I ended up with like tons of electrical tape and other pieces of trucks taped in there and all crammed under this body to try and get away from that. And it worked, but it was not very convenient, and I didn't like that I had all this stuff crammed under the body of this thing when I came across this truck. Now this, take the body off here. This truck, out of the box, looks like this. Gross. Let's take this body off, which, let's be honest, this thing is gross. It's garbage. Now, I have already modified this, and I put it all the way back to stock to show you as step-by-step as I could what I've already done. So, the easiest way to get some flex out of this is to move these links around. The way these are set up is all wrong. You need some kind of triangulation opposing each other, which might not mean anything to you, but anyway, let's just get to it. So let's take the that way, and that part is done. So that was the only modification I've done to the front, and already you can see it actually flexes. Crazy. Why they didn't do that at the toy factory, I don't know. But you could do that to the front and the back, and you'd have a decent amount of flex. And that's just the front done, and the flex is already increased. I think that's a real word, by like 200%. So now what we're going to do on the rear is a bit more extensive. So on the rear, I have made this. I will show you where that goes in a minute. But this is just, again, some TIG rod with an extremely tiny little TIG weld there. I know it doesn't look that good, but I mean, let's be honest. It's the size of my thumbnail. What do you expect? Anyway, so TIG rod, and then I bought these guys at the hobby store. These little plastic ball cups, I forget how much it was. It was not expensive. And they clip right on to the ball studs that are already on this guy. The next part, these guys here. These came with the WL Toys truck. They're longer. If you don't have one of these, you can get metric 2.5, 2.5M standoffs, eBay or whatever. Or just figure out another way. But now, look at all that flex. Flexing like a crawler should. The final link setup that I ended up staying with, take the body off here. Okay, so if you look at the front, these were bent. I heated them up and straightened them out. But from the factory, that's very similar to how it was, except I moved these from the outside here to the inside, which gives it a decent amount of flex on the front. That's the best I got for now until I can figure out some other way to get around that servo. Now the back is where I get most of the flex from, and I'm very happy with the amount of flex that I get back here. Now that is due to, what you want to do is make these parallel. This is how the Temper 16 is set up. And then I flipped this over, which is where the arms were mounted originally, and mounted the shocks to it. There you go, now you can see in there. Oh my God, that must be cat hair. Gross. Anyway, I mounted the shocks to that, and then I drilled a hole right in the top and put one ball link right in the center of this thing. And it goes to the inside on both sides, and then to the middle here, which makes a triangle, or a Y. And so it has to pivot there. And it works really, really well. And that is the link setup that I would stay with if you want to get your truck all flexified. First off, it looks like a car. It's like, why would you want to play with a truck that didn't look like a truck? Maybe that's my weird eccentric quirk or whatever, me just being anal, but I don't like this body. It looks terrible. The whole reason I got it was so I could make it look like a truck. Now, the only model I had laying around was this. 1950... Why did I just look at the box? I know exactly what it is. It's a 50 Chevy pickup. And here it is in all its farm truck glory. Now, I wasn't sold on using that. I wanted to use, I don't know, a square body Chevy or something, but I figured I had it laying around and I was going to start messing with it. It used to look really bad. I'll see if I can find the picture, and if I do find it, I'm going to post it right here. Because I started the thing when I was like 12, had like a gold engine and all this terrible stuff. Anyway, I did a dovetail bed, I cut the bed up, glued it all together with super glue, shortened the tailgate. Now these bars here are actually aluminum welding wire, same thing with the Stinger. It just kind of helps make the whole thing a little more rigid, because it does get beat up. It rolls over all the time and stuff breaks, and kind of have to stay on top of it. But for the most part, it works really well. And then I just patinaed it, you know, spray paint and then some watercolor paint and a couple acrylic paints, a bunch of different layers, and then I glued it back together, and I was really happy with how this body came out, because I thought I wasn't going to like it, and I ended up really loving it. And then I just glued a Lego right there, and then I glued a Lego right there to mount the thing, and that actually works really well. Just plop that on there, and it is a part of this thing. Unless you wreck really gnarly, then it will come off. And then on that whatever. The same train of thought, how about that? I decided I would mount the hood the same way. I glued a Lego right there. I glued a Lego right there. And the battery goes under the hood right here. And then I can just put this back on. And I really don't need to take the body off of this thing for much. And then I had to do a ton of clearancing to get these rear arms to go through the bed. But, I mean, all said and done, I'm really happy with this truck. It looks really cool on camera, and it just looks really cool. I decided not to use the grill that came with it, because it, you know, if it was a Wheeler, it wouldn't have that bright, shiny chrome grill. It would have some radiator stuffed under the front, which came out of another model. But I guess the whole point of this video is, if you are like I was, and you're looking into these scale crawlers, or looking into crawlers in general, look at the 24th scale stuff. Yes, it's smaller, it's not as powerful, but it doesn't need to be. This will climb over lots of things really well for the size that it is, and I can play with it, like I said, again, I can play with it on the carpet, I can play with it on the couch, I can play with it on my lap. You know, if you've had these big 10th scale crawlers, don't get me wrong, I want one. I still want one. but I can't afford one. If you have those, you know, you have to like go out, find a spot to crawl up some rocks or have something in your yard. You could have something in your family room or whatever, but it's going to take up a decent chunk of space. So I would suggest if you want to play with the crawler and get into it and see what it's about, get yourself a small one. Play with it for a little bit, and if you're really into it, then start looking at the big ones. As far as the 24 scale trucks go, this is the ECX Temper 24. This is the WL Toys 24438. Now make no mistake, the WL Toys is a cheap copy of the ECX. I bought this as the first one because I thought they were the exact same truck, just rebranded. They are not. There's a lot of very similar things, but at the end of the day, this one has better electronics and it crawls better. It's slower also. I do like the speed of this one, but I'll sacrifice that for electronics that actually work. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and maybe I'll get some more RC stuff up here. But if you want to play with the crawler and the price is what's scaring you away, look at 24 scale stuff, or micro crawlers as they call them, because they are a lot of fun and they are way cheaper. And in my eyes, it's totally worth it. But thanks for watching the video, and I hope to see you guys again. I'll try and get some more stuff up. See ya.
Back of the truck. There you go. Yeah.
All right, test 1 2, test 1 2, and the truck is alive. Whoop 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 whoop, whoop 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 whoop, whoop 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 whoop, whoop 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 whoop.